We're live.
Call to order. Roll call. House.
Here.
Ms. Stadishner. Ms. Reeves. Mr. Patterson. Here. Mr. Gross.
Here.
Mr. Donahue. President Stewart. Here. We did get our four, so we have a quorum. Mayor Reeves. Here. Sorry about that. First, we'll start with the discussion topics, and we're joined this evening by Rainbow and Patty from the St. James Regional School, and if you can address council about the upcoming Bulldog Dash.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Rainbow Giaquino, this is Patty Butler. We sit on the advisory board at St. James Regional, and last year we had a 5K run and a 1 mile fun run or a walk, and it was very successful, and we're hoping if the board approves it again this year, that we'll be hosting the second annual St. James run on Saturday, April 5th. We've added some highlights this year. Some family fun activities would include a moon bounce, a face painter. We're welcoming back our celebrity MC, Mr. Yuki Washington. He'll be there as well. We have a DJ, and all of that is free for Eddystone residents. Again, this will be at no cost to the borough. We will incur all the costs associated with the dash, including the extra patrolmen, etc. We have some flyers. If those are approved, we have all the copies made so we can hand those out at a later date. And as a token of our appreciation, we're offering a $5 discount for any Eddystone resident that does want to actually participate in the dash. And if there's any questions, you can contact the school, and we have that phone number on the flyers as well.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Acting Chief Macheska, I know I forwarded you the route or the map. I know Rainbow and Patty were looking for approval on that, just so that they can move forward with the Bryn Mawr Running Company to say this is exactly the route that we're going to follow. I'll also need to coordinate with Gene Scott, the highway superintendent, so that we'll be able to set up the barricades and do the road closures based on your direction on how you'd like to control traffic. So is this okay, the route that is proposed?
All the provisions are made. I made provision really Park Borough for extra cones and extra traffic barriers. Just one thing, I sent Patty an email earlier. I think the map is up one street from where it needs to be. We just have to make one small adjustment. And we're going to get together right
We
after
can easily do that.
get it straight. So everything seems to be in order.
You'd be making use of the fields too, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we would be opening up Lighthouse Hall. I think we discussed about opening
We
up
did.
Lighthouse Hall
Yes,
for
having that
your bathroom
available.
facilities.
And then we'll also be using the doghouse
Okay.
as well.
Are you going to need the kitchen facilities at all?
No.
Okay.
We do have the back bathrooms are kind of outside. We could probably open them, might be easier.
Okay.
Could I ask what the change was on the map?
I'm not exactly sure, but I think one of the roads is actually an alleyway, and it should be a street.
This
Let's have the mayor just talk to her real quick, Mr. President.
Sure.
Excuse me. Do you have a flyer?
It's in the packet.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Great color.
This is where my soft shoe would come in.
Yeah. I was going to tell Tim that somebody put a kick me sign on his back, and it's showing up really good in the video.
There you go.
that, Tina. She's a joker.
Tim, what I'll note is I'll, just take formal action in next council meeting to formally approve the Bulldog Dash and the use of the field for the 5th of April.
You never know if this will be in focus or not, but this is the Bulldog Dash, Saturday, April 5th, 2014. Starts at 9 a.m., 5K run. And the website is www.brynmarrunningcompany.com. And St. James Regional, for information, 610-583-3662.
So just a little minor update on the map. Bryn Mawr Company actually handles all of the mapping for us. So the chief found a couple of spots where, I guess through Google Maps, he had us going through 2 alleys. And on the color map, it's a little bit easier to see than on the black and white that he has. So we'll adjust that with our contact at Bryn Mawr Running Company and then run that by you again for final approval before anything is finalized. And we'll also be back next week to discuss with the...
So when you get that, you just email it to me.
Absolutely.
Council, any questions for Rainbow or for me?
Would you mind if I shared this on Facebook?
Absolutely, share away.
Thank
Any
you.
extra help we can get would be great.
If you want to give me your email address, I can send you the PDF or whatever you need, or are you just gonna put the information?
I can do it, that's fine.
That would be it.
I've got a website too, where I post all these videos. And when you get that updated, if you want to send me a copy, I know you'll have it next weekend.
Yes, we will. So you'll be here at next week's meeting. We'll be here as well, so we'll just review that next week. We'll have it all handled by then. Thank you.
Ladies, thank you very much for coming out. Weather
you.
hopefully will be a lot better on the 5th of April than what it was this
We
evening.
hope, we hope.
And did you say you would come back next week
Yes,
as well?
we'll be
make
here.
Absolutely.
we'll formally approve
Okay.
the dash at next week's council meeting. Probably have a few more folks that are in attendance, but we do appreciate you coming out this evening.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, I also wanted to discuss the computer hardware upgrades that was presented by Stevie G at the February council meeting. Tim, I don't see the package in my set.
I didn't, I must email you because I don't think I got that
Okay,
on the,
that's it right there. That's it. Is there any questions that council may have about what Stevie G was proposing for the upgrades? It's what I would consider to be a minimal cost for just over $2,000 for all the hardware, and then $950 for his installs, but that would bring us into the newer technology. It would also give Stevie the opportunity to basically have remote access, so that in the event that we do have any type of computer glitch, that instead of him having to come in after hours and us being down all day long, he would be able to provide that IT assistance over the phone and through a remote access. So we'll be taking action at next meeting for the computer hardware upgrades. Tim, that's going to work 2 ways. If we approve it, we'll make the direct order through Tiger Direct. We have an account with the borough through Tiger Direct. They I would give Steve the authorization to call in all of the specific numbers. And then all of that would be shipped directly to the borough. And then upon receipt of the hardware, we would give Steve a call and have him make arrangements to come in and do the install.
Okay.
Along with that, I sent instructions to everybody about email addresses. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to go through. I've established my email address. It's up and running. Is there any issues or problems?
Mine is up and running.
You've not tried yours yet?
No.
Okay. But the borough now has, or council at least has, email addresses. It would be first initial, last name, at eddystoneborough.org, and that borough would be BORO.org. So in Danielle's case, D. Thompson at eddystoneborough.org.
Does that extend to Dallas as well?
That extends to Dallas as well. I met with Dallas, Dave, Councilman Patterson and I met with Dallas on Thursday. I sent him the instructions, Friday. And I sent him the instructions on Friday afternoon, so hopefully Dallas will be up and running here very shortly as well.
You will be on vacation for the next week.
Can I ask a quick question about the computer thing?
Sure.
Is that the same proposal that was given out previously, or were some minor changes made to it or something?
The same proposal that Stevie G gave at the February council meeting.
Yeah. So we could just insert that in with my documents
Yep.
from last time.
Yep.
That'd be great, thank you.
We've also been looking at, from Emergency Communications Network, a program called Code Red. And what Code Red is it's a emergency and non-emergency notification system. The company would come in and through a web-based database, they would identify all the residents in Eddystone. Anybody that has a listed phone number, that comes in their database. They also have the opportunity for us to provide them numbers, whether they are home numbers, cell numbers, email addresses. It also gives the residents an opportunity to sign up with their phone numbers, landlines, as well as cell phones, as well as email addresses. And it gives the borough that opportunity in the event that we want to do a mass notification to the residents. And I will use this evening as an example. If we were to decide to cancel this evening's meeting due to inclement weather, we would have that opportunity to send a message out to everyone that says, due to the weather, this meeting has been canceled. If we've got a rescheduled date, we would provide that as well. In addition to it being notifications borough-wide, you also have the capability through their mapping system to isolate and make notification to a single street or a single block. And I'll use for an example, a few weeks back we had a water main break on Ashland Avenue, and through this system we would be able to send a message to all of the residents that reside within the 700 block of Ashland that there's a water main break, that your water will be discolored, that you would lose water service for a period of time, and provide some updates of when Aqua would be able to make the repair. So you've got that opportunity to make those types of notifications. I know Councilwoman Gross, you've had voiced some concerns in the past about where we start getting some break-ins or vandalism that's occurring. We would be able to provide Acting Chief Macheski with the administrative privileges that his officers would be able to send a notification out to everyone that says, hey, we've had, the reports of several break-ins to some garages in certain areas, please take extra precautions. I know that's something that you're doing right now through your police blotter. I've noticed that when I've looked on the website, your police blotter is updated now, that, when you've got some things that are going on, you're putting that notification out, but not everybody's surfing your website on a routine basis.
That's correct. I think this Code Red is going to be good in a variety of aspects. One is you can have unlimited groups that you want to reach out to. You have a group just for Borough Council. You guys want to meet amongst yourself. The fire department can establish groups within the fire department. One just for EMS workers, tell them there's an EMS meeting. Instead of one person sitting down making 40 phone calls. We can also use this service within our department to fill some overtime. If we need to bring officers in, it'll kind of free up someone from making multitude of phone calls at once. Also, I think it adds right into our emergency planning. If we have a hazmat incident or emergency, where we got to rapidly move residents and advise them to move in a proper way, or we have a flooding condition, instead of sending runners out going door to door, we can send them out. And like Mr. Stewart was saying, if you opt into the program, you can get the message text to you. You can have your cell phone rang, your home phone rang, and an email sent to you. You can have all of those or whatever you select, or you can opt out.
Here's the thing I think will be the crux of it, is getting everybody on board. Letting people know how imperative it is to have their actual cell phone information, that if there is an emergency and they want to know, they need to come forward with their information so we can let them know.
You know, an idea that was out there was that whenever time we do a community event, we try to enlist residents and make them know of this program that we have. And the company actually had itself, they had communities where the Boy Scout troop would sit down at community functions. We just put a laptop down or an air card and it would help some of the seniors register for that information. I think that would be a great idea.
Maybe a few, yeah.
Yeah, a few block captains could do that too.
That would be a great idea.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I think you just need to reassure people about the privacy of their information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just stating the obvious there, but that would be the only impediment I could see to some people signing up. You know, my information's not that important, but some people, some people do have very strong feelings on that.
Well, at this time, Council, what we've done is, I've involved the police committee, I've involved the fire committee, I've involved Andrew Walsh, who is the chief of fire, I've involved Acting Chief Macheski, and I've involved the mayor, just to get them a feel for what the system's all about. We've had an opportunity to sit through a webinar. That webinar was followed up by a one-on-one session with Bob Wood, who has prepared the proposal for us, and it's all been very, very positive. So I encourage you to do your due diligence, go out, look at the ECN Code Red website. If there's any questions that you have in the proposal, one of the advantages that we have as a smaller community is that they have a special unlimited plan for small communities under 2,500. We are at 2,410 at the as of the last census,
Right.
and that qualifies us for a $2,500 per year annual cost with a 3-year term. Media Borough has been the latest municipality that has joined the Code Red program. I'm going to reach out to Media Borough. I'm going to confirm that that they have that same small community pricing.
Right.
That Mr. Wood was not able to give them a cheaper deal because, according to him, this was the rock bottom price. It doesn't get any cheaper than this. And then what we'll do is, we'll discuss it one last time in executive session next week. And if everybody's comfortable, we'll move forward with the purchase. Acting Chief Macheski, any comments in addition to what's already been discussed?
The one seminar we went to, they offer a free trial of their app, which is free on your smartphone. And what I thought was excellent with it was they have a missing child alert.
Yeah.
And the missing child alert goes to everybody's phone. So if we have a missing child in town, we can get every resident and tell them where we want them to report their data to, plus post a picture of the kid on everybody's phone. Plus, with that app, as you travel, say you want to go to another state, if you put yourself in that bubble as you travel, Any municipality that has that software puts an alert out, it'll go to your phone. So you'll know traffic conditions or any emergencies that you're stumbling into.
Mayor Reeves? Comments or anything?
No, I think it's an excellent program.
Councilwoman Gross, any comments? I know you sat at the
Yeah.
one webinar.
Just like Ed had brought up about child alert, the criteria of, I know one of the concerns was the Amber Alert, and they had to go through the state police to issue that. And I would like to make sure that certain people have that capability only to do a child alert, not everyone, because I see you can have someone just say, my kid's missing. And yeah, I don't want that to happen, so I want to make sure that is only signed off on certain people, like you or Archie, something.
The Amber Alert has a very specific criteria that has to go through state police.
Right.
So what we would do is if we had a missing child in town where we couldn't meet that criteria, we could send it out to the neighborhood and see if any parent, maybe this kid might be in someone's house playing a video game.
Exactly.
And that's what we use it for, but we would use discretion and screening.
That's the big thing, because when he said that anybody could do it, I'm thinking, oh no. We don't want just anybody doing it. We want to make sure it's only certain people that have that capability.
One of the nice things about the system is that, you know, not only do you assign administrators that would have access to your system,
Right.
you know, but you also set security levels as well.
Right.
You know, so and I'll use Tina as an example, is we would give Tina the access to the system to be able to send out what we'll call a non-emergency message. So if the meeting tonight is canceled, we give Tina that access to do a non-emergency message. Whereas Acting Chief Macheski, we would give him the emergency privileges, so that, you know, in the event that you've got a missing child, if you've got in the event that you've got to do some type of evacuation or something, you know, he would have that authority to be able to do that. I'm thinking, you know, Bob Glean would have that administrative privilege to be able to order an evacuation to an emergency situation, as well as Chief Walsh from the fire department as well. So you set those levels of, you know, who can do what.
Right.
And, you know, the other thing is that you can also decide, okay, I can do a blast out of phone calls, text messages, and emails, or you can just send text messages, or you can just send emails, or you can just make phone calls. So you have that capability. So, you know, God forbid we're into a flood situation and a hurricane, you don't necessarily want to send an email out to everybody, because not everybody's going to be on the email looking at it every hour of every minute of every day. So, you know, in that particular case, you want to get the word out quickly, you need immediate action, you're going to send a text message and a phone call.
Right. Right. Especially when the power goes out in certain blocks, and they want to know if anyone knows how long their power's going to be out. And someone would say, yeah, 3 hours. This gives them an update instead of them calling constantly saying, when's my light's going to be back on.
So once again, we'll take action on that at next meeting. If everybody has an opportunity during the next week to review the proposal that was prepared by Bob Wood, I'll follow up with a phone call to Media Borough and make sure that that is the rock bottom price. The last thing that I do want to point out about Code Red is that Acting Chief Macheski and I had the opportunity to meet and see a presentation in Marcus Hook. The reason why the presentation was being conducted in Marcus Hook was because Marcus Hook is looking to purchase the system. Tinicum Township has already gotten the system, so that they've already rolled it out. You know, those two municipalities being neighbors to us, you know, although when they send a call out, it will not go to Eddystone residents, but we could set it up so that Acting Chief Macheski, the mayor, Bob Glean, Andrew Walsh are signed up. They're getting the notifications because they're going to be a member of Tinicum and they're going to be a member of Marcus Hook. And in the event, you know, say you've got a chemical plume, say, is discharged in Marcus Hook, we're able to send out that same notice if the winds are blowing north.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Is there any restriction about what you can use that for? I'm thinking just in terms of, if there was a meeting of the rec board or the newfangled historical society that we might have or something like that. Would you be allowed to send something out in the morning and say this evening there's going to be a meeting of the such and such committee or something
Yes.
like that? Okay.
Yes, and
So you don't have to kidnap a child to get on the system?
no. The other part of the system that I liked a lot is that you don't want to get into a situation where you're bombarding people with information that they don't want to hear. So when we set the system up, we can customize the sign-up process to where a resident can say, listen, if it's an emergency and it's an emergency call, send it my way. But if you click the non-emergency box, it ain't going to go to me.
Good.
And you also have the right to opt out completely. If they have captured your cell number or they have captured your home phone via their database, and all of a sudden you're getting phone calls or you're getting text messages that I don't want to get anymore, you do have that ability to just be on the do not call list. It's not recommended in an emergency situation, but you have that right. Council, I'd like to begin the discussion about developing a plan to upgrade our website. I did send to everybody this afternoon a 7-step plan that is in the package for website development. Item number 1, obviously identifying potential folks that are going to do the web design. As part of my homework assignment, I looked at the surrounding communities, looking at the content that they have on their website, and then going down to the bottom of the list and saying this website is powered by or was created by a certain organization. And what I've identified on the short list right now, 6 companies, firecompanies.com, who does the Ridley Park Borough website, a firm by the name of Computer and Network Paramedics that do the Springfield Delco site, the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs, who does the Sharon Hill Borough website, a firm by the name of eGov Strategies LLC that is doing the Radnor site, a firm Hoff Communications that does Yeadon Borough, and MShop 360, which is actually a firm that was recommended by the Vicentes. Essentially what I've done is just put out a feeler. Is to say, hey, we're the Borough of Eddystone. This is our website. We're looking to do an upgrade. I like your work that you've done on whether it's Ridley Park, whether it's Radnor, whether it's Yeadon Borough. Can you give us some additional information about yourself? The first question that they're going to ask is, how many pages do you want? So, step 2 is to kind of identify the content that we want to have on the website. So I've gone through and picked out some bullet points that I'd like everybody to consider. These are not written in stone. All this is right now is a proposal, and I'm asking you all to do some thought about, things that you would like to see on our website. The second question that they're going to ask is what type of programming format would you like to have? And I am in no way an expert on the types of different programs that you have for developing websites, but they throw terms out like HTML, which from what I understand is basically it's a blank piece of paper and you can make that page look however you want it to look without any type of templates or formats. You can have it do what you want it to do. And then there is CMS, is that the correct term, Glenn?
First one was HTML.
HTML?
The second one is CSS. Usually, HTML is the basic language that they write a web page in, and CSS is sort of like an overlay. So every website will have some HTML. CSS, what that does is set a style for the whole website, so that it's almost like making a template or a blank form, so that every page looks pretty much the same and there's consistency. And you don't have to write every single page from scratch. You just start, you do one style sheet, and then you can just edit each page after that. It's much less time consuming.
In writing the website, there's two important things that I'd like to, actually three important things that I'd like to make sure that we have. The first one is the community calendar. I think it's important that the residents should be able to see what's happening this week in Eddystone, what types of meetings we have, when the Bulldog Dash is going to be. We're going to talk later about the Eddystone Community Cancer Walk. To be able to go right on the homepage and see what's coming up this week, but also to be able to go in and look, what's happening next month, or what's happening in June, or what's happening in September, or when's the toy giveaway going to be for Santa Claus this year. That information would be available through the website. The second thing is that, I believe that we should use the website as a marketing tool to promote folks that want to come, move, and buy a house in Eddystone. It's important to, say, hey, we are within walking distance of the regional rail line, going into Center City or going into Wilmington. It's important to say that we are within miles of the entrance to the interstate or 476. It's important for us to say that Eddystone is in the Ridley School District. It's important for us to say, that Eddystone has a very stable tax base. It's definitely a marketing tool for us to promote folks to come into the borough. And then the third thing would be is to make sure that, we've got the mechanism in place that when we have a workshop meeting or a council meeting or a committee meeting and we're generating minutes, that we can put those minutes onto the website. And if we want to get as fancy as what Glenn does with the Eddystone Civic Association, we would be able to put those videos of these meetings right onto the website as well. So there are the three things that I personally feel is the most important. I will open it up to discussion, or if you wanted to kind of weigh in during the course of the next couple weeks and months. I don't believe this is something that we're going to be able to do within the next couple weeks. I think this is going to be a project that we have ongoing for the next few months, but it's something that I'd like us to be able to move forward with. So, questions, comments? Going once?
Good to go.
Going twice?
Are you accepting comments from the floor?
Absolutely.
Okay. You and I have talked about this a couple of times. I'm Glenn Wilson, and I do have the Eddystone Borough Civic Association website, which is eddystonescivic.org, O-R-G. And that's where I put the documents that we hand out every week, post there, and just try to provide information, because in the past the borough hasn't really been doing that function. And I know you're taking steps to address that situation now. In part of our discussions, some of the things that I've said were there are a number of ways to approach this, and one way to do it is to do the whole website and launch it, and you've got every single feature you're ever going to have, and it's there. The other way to do it would be to put up something simple and add features to it as time goes by and you see a need for things. Right now, the website that we have up is hopelessly out of date. It doesn't even have, I think Mayor Orr is still listed as the mayor, and I'm not sure, I think the council members are incorrect on that, although I think they're incorrect on mine too, because I hadn't updated that. But one of the things that I've stressed is simplicity, not so much in what the features are, but in how the website is structured, so that you don't end up becoming dependent on some company that you're paying out month after month after month to do things that you could do inside. The Civic Association website may look fancy to some people, but other people look at it and see that it's really a very simple operation. And that's based on something called a content management system. Maybe that's what you were referring to before when I maybe misunderstood when you said
CMS was the term that
yeah.
was explained to me,
Right.
content management system.
Right. Content management system is something where basically the website is up there and it's like a window frame. But then you can assign permissions for people to go in and edit each page. So, for example, each council person could have their own page that only they could edit. You know, obviously somebody's going to have overall control. But when things needed to be put on the calendar or something, Tina could add them or Tim could add them, and it's very simple. It's just like using a word processor or something. You go in via the web. You don't need any special software. You just use Firefox or Internet Explorer or an Apple browser. You sign in and you can actually correct things right there from the web, from your computer, wherever you are, as long as you have permission to access that page and make edits to it. And one of the nice things about that is that there's really practically no learning curve to doing it. If you can do email, you can do this, I would say. And those systems are usually set up in a modular way, where you have the basic system, and then you can add things. You can add an interactive calendar. There are a number of different calendars types that you can do. You can make something that has a photo gallery or something with little images that slide past as you look at them. There you could, if you ever wanted to, you could actually add a forum to it where people could, communicate. Obviously, people could send you emails through the website, and it's actually very simple. You set it up one time, and it pretty much runs. Mm-hmm. And my feeling was that if we did something simple like that, and just had someone come in and make it look really nice, because that's just a cosmetic thing. Like making your banner with the Eddystone and the lighthouse and having the top of the page look the way you want it to look. Some of the websites that you had looked at there, some of them are very simple. They just have a very beautiful little graphic going across the top and a bunch of menu drop downs, and that's really all you need. We'd be so far ahead of where we've ever been in the past. Mm-hmm. And it's also something that you could get up and running pretty quickly to at least get the basics up there. So, you guys are going to decide that. I did do a sample website for you. I won't. It's up there. I don't know if you want me to tell people where to go and look at it for comments, but I'll just leave that alone for now.
You have the email address of every borough council member, and you can forward that on so they can take a look at it and come up with the ideas. And
I'll do that. And you can see what's already done there, and then You could tear that apart.
But I do hear what you're saying about you want to make sure that you balance what you've done, what you've farmed out for someone to do for you professionally with what you can do yourself.
Right.
And if you look closely at the plan that I put together, on the home page, I've got a seasonal photo loop that, what we're kind of envisioning is you've got, Eddystone in the summer, you've got Eddystone in the fall, Eddystone in the winter, and Eddystone in the spring, and you create this loop of photos that would go through. That loop would be something that we would be able to do as a borough to update the website in that manner. The next one down is the local news. We're certainly not going to burden a webmaster to be uploading our local news or, weekly news. So that's something that whether we have to have, train somebody to be able to put that together and upload it to the website. The same goes with the calendar. And what I looked through is, and I must have left off the videos and the minutes, but those are things that, would be handled by somebody in the borough to be able to update that stuff. So I believe we're on the same track of what you're trying to describe, is to say, let's make somebody let it look pretty, but leave it open enough that we're able to keep it updated and keep it fresh and keep it current.
Yeah, because we do have other things to spend money on.
Yes.
I have no idea what these web design companies would charge for this.
I was told off the record that you could spend a few $1,000s, or you could spend $25,000-$30,000. It all depends on what you want your website to do and what you want it to look like, and the sky's the limit.
Okay, great.
PSA fees $199 a year.
$389, I thought it was. $375.
I use it in Derby. I pay
Do you use $199 a year? Maybe the setup was like $400. It was like almost $400 for the setup.
That's $199 a year. Works out of WordPress. I update it after every cancel.
Do you?
It's very simple. It's like using a Word document. Go in, you type. It's got the bars up top.
That's pretty much the same as what I'm saying. It's just a different. WordPress may be considered a content management system, I think.
I believe it is.
So, we're both agreeing on that. Is there one of these sample websites that's done by that company?
Yeah, it's Sharon Hill.
Sharon Hill?
Were you there when Darby set it up through PSAB?
I did.
Oh, you set it up
I'm
through
the
PSAB?
webmaster.
Oh, okay.
I load everything on it. Stormwater. It's open up to a home page. It's got a picture on it, and then it has all the links on the side. We upload all our rental forms, code stuff. You just can download everything from our website. And it's easy right to know too, because when people request minutes and stuff, we just tell them to go to the website and we save paper, and they can just.
I'm looking at Darby Borough when I get home, because I have not looked at Darby Borough yet.
It's PSAB. And we did that a couple years ago. You just called them, sent over to them everything we wanted in a Word document, and then they designed it. And if you liked it, if you wanted to make changes, you just told them what to do, and they did it, and then you worked from there. Simple, easy, and cheap.
Ain't nothing wrong with simple, easy, and cheap.
You got it.
You can communicate an awful lot of information with very little effort or expense. So this is something that's long overdue, and I'm glad we're getting to it now, because I think it would be a big factor in pulling the community together, getting everybody on the same page. Everybody has the same information. Right now, there's a lot of places where there are pockets of information. This group knows about what's going on here, this group knows what's going on here, but it would be great if everybody had access to all the same stuff at one place.
Council, any questions about website development? Your input is not only greatly appreciated, but expected to, put our website together so it's demonstrating Eddystone in the best light possible. Next discussion topic is the Eddystone Hall. rental agreement update. Immediately behind the website development plan, there is 4 pages for a draft copy of the Eddystone Hall rental agreement. And there's also the next page, which is a proposed fee schedule for the different halls. 2 things that I want to point out. Number one, there's been some discussions about, we definitely are going to rent out Joe Hughes Memorial Hall, and that's a revenue opportunity that the longer we go without a formal agreement for rentals, any formal pricing structure, we're losing that opportunity. And considering that April, May is the beginning of wedding season, it'd be in our best interest to make sure that we move forward quickly with getting an agreement in place. But there's also been discussions about possibly renting out Eddystone Lighthouse Hall. And I will lean on Ms. Gross as the reason why that I would even consider Lighthouse Hall, just simply because the Joe Hughes Memorial Hall, you've got that commercial kitchen. You need to be a professional caterer with going through the education of Safe Serve certifications so that you're cleaning and sanitizing the facility properly. It just does not facilitate, the backyard barbecue type of event at Joe Hughes Memorial Hall. And I know that's a concern that you've had about, giving a resident the opportunity to bring their own food. And Lighthouse Hall would provide that opportunity because you don't have that commercial kitchen facility. But if you go to Joe Hughes, we also have to consider some type of business relationship with a caterer. And that's the second point, is to make sure that we've got, a caterer in there that, number one, has got a following that's going to be able to keep the hall rented on a routine basis, but also, one that's going to represent Eddystone in the positive light. So I will open up for discussion with concerns that you may have. I know that you...
Should I get the list down?
Sure. That's what workshops are all about.
Oh, this is great.
That's what workshops are all about, is to having active discussion across the table.
I was not part of the group when you did the firehouse, and when someone specifically said, we're gonna buy this kitchen so no one can use it but someone put it in here to make money. Okay? In saying that, this community has always looked out for the other guy. Now, when you specify a person they have to use to have something for their family, and families are used to being able to use the fire company and coming in and having foods and a party for whatever. Just because a stove is what the big issue, because of a stove, are you saying people in this borough aren't qualified to work a professional stove? When there are a lot of people who have in this community worked a professional stove. Or getting one person who be in charge of saying, we're having a funeral, so you're going to have to use this caterer. I don't think that's fair. What about families that can't afford a caterer? And they're used to, in this borough, providing their own food. I think, to us, who we always say we're looking out for our community, that's not looking out for your community. Even your fireman. Being a volunteer myself, I understand that, that there may be a little leeway on the pricing, but still does not give us the opportunity as individuals to come and use that kitchen. Now, if that's the only reason why you build a fancy kitchen, to shut out everybody who can't afford their caterer, that's great. But then, what about we the people? That's my issue. Why can't the people who live in this borough, who serve the fire company, have the same opportunity to use that facility and the kitchen to heat up their food as a caterer? It's not her kitchen. It's not anybody's kitchen. It's the borough's kitchen. It's to be the people's kitchen. It's the tax dollars are paid for. And that's my big issue. You just shut them all out when you say, gotta use that caterer. What if you can't afford that caterer? Not my problem. But it is your problem. It really is. When you say that to we the people, you're not looking at the mass of people who'd like to use it. And that's my big thing. It really is. And it's not just me, it's other people in the community have offered the same opinion. So if we are who we say we are, and we are willing to work within our community, there's gotta be leeway. A lot of people can't afford a caterer. And I'm not just saying, you just look at all the people we have in this community. I don't know what this person charges, and to me, that's fine, whatever she wants to make, but it can't be specifically for a caterer to use that venue. If you wanna have to bring food in, if you wanna bring crock pots, that's great, well, fine and good. But if you need to heat something up, you're gonna be penalized for using that kitchen because you wanna heat something up. You need someone who has a degree in catering to heat up, hors d'oeuvres or something. That's my biggest concern, and I've heard that vibrated to different people in the community. That is my big thing. And I'm just one of those people who are we the people who feel that way.
I actually had an opportunity to talk with the caterer. It's a legal aspect as far as if there's food poisoning or anything like that would happen. And things also we have to take into consideration as far as the borough is concerned.
The boroughs have run out many times before, and we've used our own foods. And I used the borough downstairs, I used the the fire hall downstairs many occasions. And a lot of funerals have come through to use it too.
That's a regular stove.
I understand that, but you're talking about food poisoning, it could be anything.
But I'm saying, even the insurance you have to be able to operate the commercial equipment down there. I've asked all these same
Yeah,
questions.
and I just think you're shutting out, it just gnaws at me when we state we're here for the people.
I think that's,
And then we say no. You gotta use their caterer. What if they have a caterer in their family? Some people do. And I've been talked to by people who have worked on these type of stoves and stuff. And they were like, well, we can't use it then. I'm like, no, I don't think that's true. Well, apparently it's true. So I just feel that going that one way is wrong.
Mayor?
I think that's why that there have the thing for the Lighthouse Hall, that you can rent the Lighthouse Hall.
I understand that. But what if they don't wanna rent the right house? You're just being cattled into one area.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
You know my feelings about Lighthouse Hall.
I know.
I think that Lighthouse Hall is a venue for recreation, not for booze and partying. I think it should remain a recreation facility. And on Beth's behalf, I mean, I wasn't privy to the conversation that took place about the industrial stove or
Right.
anything like that. I did hear Karen talk about the, sanitizing the kitchen. I guess I worked with Fallcroft Firehouse before in the catering and Sharon Hill Firehouse. And I know there was one issue with using Sternos. They wouldn't let them use Sternos if they rented the downstairs hall at Fallcroft because of the fire issue and the insurance issues. If they brought in food without Sternos, they were allowed to rent the bottom hall. But in reference to sanitizing, maybe add an extra cleaning fee for Edie to come in and sanitize the kitchen,
But
if we
it's
do
just
use.
sanitizing.
Well, I think for the Board of Health and everything like that, they have to make sure the kitchen is up to par.
Right, but that's,
What
That's
Board
it.
of Health?
yeah.
That's.
Who's the
Yeah.
Board of
I'm just
Health?
going by
Yeah,
what-
I understand, but that's what I'm saying.
But there is no Board of Health, so I'm just trying to get specific about this.
It's going to be a facility where you're gonna serve food.
Oh, I
mean,
understand
would
that.
think you would need some criteria in order to meet, the clean kitchen and,
I think you're absolutely right. I'm just saying that if we're gonna refer to authorities,
We do have a Board of Health,
we don't have an ordinance saying that where
but
there is one.
Dallas is our health inspector, and every eatery in Eddystone has been inspected and provided a certificate from Dallas for sanitary operations.
That's what I'm saying. Now, we pay an extra cleaning fee if someone rents it outside of Edie. If Edie sanitizes the kitchen or does whatever she has to do to bring it back up to par, maybe that's something we consider.
And we, you know, and I also want to note that we have not entered into any type of an agreement with Edie. We've talked to Edie's Catering. Edie's Catering's, you know, provided some services for us, you know, in the hall. She's gotten rave reviews by everybody that has tasted her food. You know, however, we have not entered into any type of an agreement to date with Edie to say Edie's the caterer that's going to be controlling that hall.
Right, and that was one of my main concerns too, just as someone lives here. What if they don't like her? I mean, you know, everyone has a different caterer idea they like, you know, and I would, you know, somebody says, you know, what if I don't want this one? If my uncle's a caterer of Philly, he wants to come and use it. You know, I think if you box us in and you say, you gotta stick with this one or you can't do it, that's wrong.
Do you know, Bill, if Edie's contract is exclusive to just using her once we sign it? Or
We've not seen any type of business plan or any proposal from Edie to date that would say that she's exclusive.
I do like, she's very easy to work with. I do work with her at Sharon Hill. You know, but I maybe opening up that other door of maybe her coming in and sanitizing the kitchen after. I don't know, for an extra fee.
My question is, what, you know, will we find out, what does it take to sanitize the kitchen? Is it spraying something, or is it, that's just my question, you know, what do you consider sanitizing the kitchen? Yeah, I'm just curious, you know, like you said, can you use stir now to heat up food in this kitchen instead of using their stove, or, you know, it's a tax dollars above the stove.
What's the fire suppression system there? Is it a foam suppression system?
I believe it is, yes.
You know, so you're in a situation where, you know, we as a borough say, okay, you're allowed to use the hall. You can use the kitchen facilities. You know, now you're cooking your cheesesteak on the grill, and the grease sets off the fire suppression system, and, you know, you've foamed the entire grill area. That's an expense that, you know, when you go back to the resident and say, hey, you know, now you have to pay for this because you set the foam off.
Edie could do it too, or any other caterer.
But Edie's also insured. She's
Right.
also insured that.
It's gotta have to be really a high heat to set that off. It's not just gonna be a regular stove heat.
No,
The
grease fire
calibration
can
is
set
set
that
for
off.
it.
A grease fire can set that off. or
I
somebody
understand.
can hold the pin and set it off
Yeah,
also.
if they have to do that, absolutely. That was my thing, locking us into some person, that other people may not feel that they need that person. If they have a family caterer or, whatever, and saying, you know, she has it for, how long are you gonna let her have it? 6 months? Every 6 months she negotiates, a year? What if they don't like her? What if we have an issue? Can we get out of it after 6 months? These are things I'm just thinking.
We have not written the contract with Edie.
I understand.
These are all
Just-
things
right,
that could be put
right.
into that contract.
Right, right.
I
That-
think with the, if I may, I think the biggest thing was getting the caterer in there to rent the hall out, mainly because who is going to take responsibility of being able to rent that hall out?
Right, for a calendar management type.
Right, right. But then did we go into business to build that kitchen just for a caterer, or for the use of the people of the town?
Are you going to take the responsibility to make sure you can get renters down there to rent it out and stuff like that?
I didn't suggest I was. What I was
That's
suggesting was,
that's why
is that
I think
as the
that they
people
were
can
looking
rent it
at,
too.
caterer.
I understand that, I do, I understand that, but I don't think you should shut the people out. And by doing that, you basically do. Well, if they can't afford it, too bad.
I'm
Gotta go to
gonna
lighthouse.
step on a small limb
Yeah,
and say that the norm in most communities,
most communities, not Eddystone.
when
That's
you
what we
have,
do.
when you have a facility that is set up like Joe Hughes Memorial Hall is set
Right.
up, that you've got a caterer that's under contract
I
that
understand that.
manages the
I do.
facility for you.
I do. I'm not trying to be hard about this. I'm just trying to make you understand that you've always said Eddystone's different. And I know you're pigeonholed to be another community. We're not. We're Eddystone. We're a different community. That's what I've been told. Seriously. And I really feel passionate about that. I mean, a lot of people have asked me the same thing. I'm like, From what I understand, nothing's been signed, you know, you'll be able to use it, as far as I understand. And if that's the way you go, that's fine, but I think you're cutting a lot of people when you say, gotta use this caterer. That's all I gotta say.
Councilman Patterson, any comments?
Like I said, she's insured, and I understand where that's coming from, because I asked the same questions, for the answers I received, so. I know that the residents would get a discount, can get a discount if they went with that contract. I'm just,
I know.
He asked me my opinion.
I'm just sticking out for the little guy who's here.
Are we looking to give the residents the help for free with their own
Yeah,
caterer, or
absolutely.
just at a
If
discounted
they
rate?
if they have a family member, like some of them told me they do, and they wanna use the kitchen, because their uncle works at DuPont's and works in the kitchen for 20 years, and if they wanna use it, they wouldn't be able to use it because there was a caterer there. I said, I didn't know. But if someone in the family already has a catering job, or whatever, if they can bring like sternos in, or if they can bring crock pots in, you mean they just can't use the stove? Now, do they have a microwave there? I don't think so. I don't know. I just don't wanna pigeonhole us into be every community. That's what we're not about. That's all I feel. I really do.
Maybe we can look into the insurance for the sternos, because I know that was an issue at one of the other halls.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I use sternos here and the stove,
Right.
Right.
so, but,
Are the firemen allowed to use that equipment?
Firemen don't have a key to the building, only the head trustee.
key to the hall, you're talking about.
Yeah.
They have a key to getting into the areas they need to be.
So the short answer is no, it's not like you're in there cooking a fireman's dinner or anything.
Yeah, because I was wondering what was the original concept? Why do we have a kitchen in there at all? Most people would
Fire
think,
company has a kitchen upstairs on the second floor.
so they have their own kitchen.
We have our own, yes.
Okay, so what was the reason for putting this kitchen in there? The professional
I don't
kitchen
know.
that you need to be licensed to operate, what was the reason that was put in there? In order to rent out the hall?
So you could rent the hall out for events, weddings,
Weddings,
funerals,
graduations.
birthdays, wedding anniversaries.
But I believe that was done before all of us were sitting up here.
Yeah.
Yes, Claire.
Is this Joe Hughes Hall also part of the evacuation center?
Yes.
In the case of an evacuation, would we be able to feed people? Would we call in our caterer to feed people in an evacuation situation?
I believe that we would have to give a phone call to start having a caterer in there to prepare food if we were to evacuate, yes.
Okay.
Mayor, any comments?
No. I already gave you mine.
Hall and causes somebody else an injury, then likely the person who causes the injury is gonna get sued, but so's the hall, or whoever's supplying alcohol.
But don't they have a different one? One for just beer, one for hard liquor?
I bet you the beer one's cheaper.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
mean, I'm just guessing. at
Yeah,
that.
I
mean,
thought there different ones had, like different fire companies had one for beer
Yeah, I
only.
bet you it's
Yeah,
like a price thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, Mayor.
I did give Karen a copy of the hall agreement with the liquor and everything like that they use up in Fossil Fire.
Awesome, okay. I did not get a copy of that as of yet,
Yeah,
so,
Karen has it in the house, I know
okay.
that.
Is there any licensure or any type of process you gotta go to before you start serving liquor there?
The only reason I'm asking is because we're selling liquor,
Yeah.
which means we're required to pay tax, if I'm not mistaken, some type of tax.
I don't know how that law works, it's a little bit above me, but I would think that we would have to do something, and then we're putting a lot of liability on the bartender, and making bartender make a lot of decisions.
Yep.
Is there any type of training that person should receive under the insurance policy or anything like that? I guess it would be up to risk management as to how they would direct us to handle that.
Usually, on most halls, whoever's renting it would supply the, liquor and wine. The, borough or whoever could have a deal with the local brewery where they would bring in the, whatever kind of beer you want, as like, Udenall has. They have a deal with one of the breweries around, that they deliver whatever you want, they charge X amount for it.
I know like the Doghouse does, they supply the
Basically
beer.
the same thing,
They
yes.
supply the beer, but it's on a per half keg basis.
Yes,
If you kick the keg, you pay the whole thing.
right.
And then you make the decision if they're gonna tap a second keg, even though you're only gonna crack into it. They can say, okay, I'll tap that second keg, but you're paying for the whole thing.
Right. And the remainder is left there for the next, for whoever.
Right.
And I'm not totally
I'm just
sold, I'm not totally
voicing my
sold
opinion, but
on
I've been
hard,
helping
on
other
hard
people
liquor.
too.
Cause,
Yeah.
you know, if we're gonna use a bartender,
Yeah,
here's an ideal situation where you've got a volunteer fire company who you could say, okay, you know, you guys have the first right of refusal to be a bartender at a function, and you could be making some side money through playing the bartender.
Don't bartenders have liability too if they serve someone more than they should have and send them out?
Yep.
So is that like a licensed position?
no, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No,
I don't believe it is, no.
anybody can be a bartender,
You have to be over
21,
21, yeah.
but you can serve alcohol if you're 18. You just can't drink it as you serve it.
So we've generated a lot of good questions,
Yeah,
but the questions have to be answered in a very timely manner because I'll use my earlier statement, wedding season is April, May, June.
graduation's coming up too. I
Yes.
know, I have one.
On the one from Phyllis, they also have the thing about alcohol. They won't pour any shots. Everything has to be either mixed or over the ice or whatever. And the bartenders have a right to refuse anybody that they feel intoxicated, or if they don't feel it's old enough. It's all spelled right out in their contract.
Does a Bulldog do hard liquor or just straight beer?
I don't know, I think it's just beer.
Yeah, and anytime we went there,
Beer
it's
and
like
wine.
steak.
Yeah,
Beer and wine, I believe.
yeah. Yeah, I think when you get into hard liquor is when you get into problems. All beer gets you in problems anyway, so.
Moving on, Women's History Month. Councilwoman Tatasciore was unable to join us this evening, but I did speak with her via telephone, and she was going to reach out to Jeff Durazio at the school, begin the process of the children writing essays for Women's History Month in March, and typically we would recognize those winners at our April council meeting, which I believe is April 14th. Years past, and maybe you can help me out, I think it was a gift certificate that we would give.
I think so.
Tina, do you recall?
It's a gift certificate, right?
Women's
Savings
History
Club?
Month, what we give, a gift certificate, like $25 gift
Oh,
certificate?
yeah. I was thinking of the essay thing. Yeah, I think so.
It is an essay thing. Is it a savings bond that we give?
I thought it was, is it the school kids, the
Yeah.
elementary? I
Elementary
don't
school.
think they're savings bonds.
That's what I thought it was last year.
Okay. I'll ask Nespo,
Yeah,
but
it does for that, yeah.
Councilwoman Thompson, you brought forward the Eddystone Drug Awareness Poster Contest.
Yes, I think this is something positive for council to unite on here. What it is the kids kindergarten through 9th grade, and I also will be reaching out to Jeff Durazio and the middle school, and the high school also, are invited to create a drug prevention poster. And they will be dropping that off to anyone who wants to participate, can drop it off the Lighthouse Hall on March 30th. And then council will agree on the winners. There's 3 different winners, A, B, C. Group A would be kindergarten through 3rd grade, Group B, 4th grade through 6th grade, and Group C, 7th grade through 9th grade. Everyone will win a copy of the book. Anyone who wins actually wins a copy of the book Sunny Story, written by Ginger Katz, and a $25 Visa gift card. I just want to touch on the book Sunny Story. I will have copies available hopefully by the next meeting. And the author actually called me after I ordered the books. So it was very nice. She does presentations. Maybe that's something we can look forward to in the future. But all in all, I think it would be something positive for us. It would be interesting to see the kids' posters too. And we'll display them up here for everybody to see.
When do you plan to put the newsletter out?
I have the newsletter done. I actually just have to start making copies, and the weather hopefully will cooperate and I can get them out delivered to all the doors. I should probably bring it up. Nick has been sick, so he hasn't really been out. And I wanted me to let everybody know he is still walking, but he's just been under the weather for a while. He was in the hospital for a while too. So hopefully within the next week, to answer your question.
Okay. And then you've also brought forward the Eddystone Community Cancer Walk.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. We had a good response. I sent it out on Facebook. We have about 70 people so far who responded, who said they are interested in walking. We are charging a fee to register for the race. It's $10 per person or $60 per group of 8. I know it says 10 in that newsletter, but I did change that to 8. All proceeds are going to the American Cancer Society, and we're going to walk starting at 6 p.m. And the reason it's a little later is because we're going to have luminary bags that people can purchase and light, and we'll do a little ceremony down at the field and light the luminary bags, which I think will be very nice for everybody. We do have several residents who are now fighting cancer in Eddystone, and they were just touched by it, and I think it's something, again, something positive for us.
Who wants to walk?
It's actually going to start at the village. It's the route of the parade that happened last year.
Okay.
So we're just going to do the parade route.
Acting Chief Macheski.
Yes.
Traffic control.
I think we should be able to handle that without any problems. I talked to Ms. Thompson. She has a decent amount of people. If you think larger, we'll just adjust her plans. And we're going to stay in contact with one another.
Okay. Thank you very much for your patience as we went through our discussion topics. Public forum, Claire Wilson.
I'm actually going to pass, and I'm awed by the crowd here, but we don't have a podium. Oh, here's the podium. I'm good.
Mr. Wilson.
I wanted to say how really good it is to see council up here discussing things like this, because that's the way it should work. You know, things get discussed in public and get decided in an orderly manner, and that's really good. So I would like to compliment you all on that. I had 3 things I wanted to talk about, but I had one question, just in terms of the Board of Health. Doesn't that have to be created by an ordinance or something? Because the person who's the head of the Board of Health is going to have certain powers and responsibilities, and don't they have to be laid out? As far as I know, like for the Planning Commission, there's an ordinance that creates that. For the Recreation Board, there's an ordinance that created that. For the Board of Health, as far as I know, the county doesn't have a Board of Health, and the borough doesn't either. So I'm just saying, you know, if we don't create it by an ordinance, and then somebody says, well, you can't tell me to shut my store down, you don't have the authority or something, that's just you guys are the professional government people, but that's my question, that's all. And you don't have to give me a response on that if you don't want to. You
My
can look
official
into that.
response will be is I will have to go and research the ordinances. I know that the health inspector's position has been a position that's been in existence for decades plus.
Good. And if there's an ordinance, it'll tell exactly what his responsibilities are, just like all the other ones. So I didn't look for that. I guess I was looking for Board of Health. But at any rate, just something to keep in mind.
You'll give me some homework for this week.
Well, these other things here are things that I'm not asking for a response on these things. It's kind of house cleaning with things that have happened before, and I wanted to bring them up, and maybe you guys could give this stuff some thought for a future time. But I stopped by today to look at the records that came from the right to know requests that I had, and Tina was very helpful with those. And if you remember, when I originally put that request in, it was, I think it was September 9th, 2013. One thing is that I had requested 2012 and 2013. There were no 2013 records. Now, I don't know if that means that you never received 2013 records.
Records on what?
These were the records about Chief Connor's payroll documents. I'd also like to know how these records were received and what format they were received in. Were they just identical to the copies that I had? Which is to say that the documents that I have are printouts from a computer program where you input information and then you print out a form and then somebody signs the form. And these are all identical all the way back to 2009. Every sheet of paper looks like it could have, like the data could have been entered in. There's no date stamp on them. They're all signed by Mayor Orr, but the signature is not dated. So all of that data could have been, and I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying that in terms of record keeping, all of that data could have been entered into a program a month ago and printed out yesterday and signed by the mayor. So that's why I'm asking about copies and so forth, because to my mind these are not original documents, and this does not satisfy what I was looking for, and it also doesn't prove anything one way or the other. These records that I got are meticulous all the way back to 2009, and it looks like every I's been dotted and every T's been crossed. And if that was all ready, why did it take so many months, and why was there so much resistance to turning them over? Part of the conversation that I had with Tina went back to how and this is looking at the future, because right now when we look at these records, no one's been able to show me anything that describes on what basis the chief of police is paid, what hours he's entitled to. Is it salary, hourly? What is that? And I've been told by members of council that there is no contract. At least there was no contract with the chief of police, so there's no document to go back to. And in terms of, you know, whether you get a flat 4 hours of comp time, you know, even if your sheet already says that you only were there for an hour and a half or something like that. I don't know if there's a policy about that. But it seems that, as it has been in the past, that whatever the mayor said, whatever the mayor approved got paid. But there was no policy or procedure that was followed. And if there is one, I'd like somebody to show it to me. And that kind of goes into, you know, the next chief you hire, whether that person is going to have a contract that spells all this stuff out, or what. My thought is that the differential in pay between a patrolman and a police chief is partly due to the extra responsibility, but also partly due to the fact that you expect the police chief to show up at certain functions, you know, and what's reasonable is reasonable. The other thing is this question of comp time and what carries over and what doesn't carry over. You know, I gather that they have 120 hours of sick time per year and that's allowed to carry over, all 120 hours every year. Is that true?
You can carry 120 hours to a cumulative 800 hours.
Okay. So 800 hours of
Payable at retirement,
payable at retirement,
yes.
so that doesn't get used as comp time then.
No, cannot be sick time.
Because in the payroll records, there were some things that were listed as comp time, some that were listed as sick time. And so if there were 800 hours of comp time, then that was not just a matter of the 120 hours accumulating over time. So all I'm saying is that it would be very good that someone could come in and say, how do we pay our chief of police? You know, how do we pay, you know, somebody else? You know, it should be a matter of public record. And so far, it just seems like whatever the chief, I keep saying the chief, whatever the mayor approved was paid by the borough. Nobody ever, as far as I can tell, nobody ever verified whether that was the case. And from the records that I've seen, I don't know whether somebody was just entering stuff into the computer and there were no timesheets, but what I have seen are not timesheets. Timesheets are something that you do your hours like on a weekly basis or something like that. And so I'm not really pressing this myself. I'm more looking toward the future on this. But you know, the council did put out a letter saying that they wanted the last 5 years of records to be turned over to the council, and also an accounting and explanation of how the comp time was computed. And if the 2013 records were not turned over to me, does that mean that they weren't turned over to you? Okay, so that's one question. And the other question is, what is the status of this? Because it was said that if these were not forthcoming, that this was going to be turned over to a higher authority, and my understanding was that the district attorney had been contacted about that. So, throwing that out, that's something that's hanging in the air that the council talked about in public and also had a written letter, and it's not resolved one way or the other. If the council is satisfied that all the records that exist have been turned over, you know, the question is, are there missing records? You know, if the council decides that there's nothing else that can be done, that's up to the council. I'm just saying, like, it's a housekeeping thing. These things haven't been resolved yet. As I said, I'm not asking for a response. I didn't mean to blindside you. That's why I'm telling you this, and if you want to think about it and give a response at a later time, that's fine with me. I had one other thing I was going to talk about. Did you want to say anything before, or should I just?
Are you going to move on to a different subject?
Yeah.
I'll give you three things. Number one, the records that you were permitted to review this afternoon with Tina. That is a complete set of records that were turned over to Borough Council. So that is the records that we have.
Did they come from the mayor, or from whom?
Those records?
Yeah, where did they come from?
I believe they came from the chief of police at the time, Bill Connor. Number two is the council, nor, and I'll say Borough Council, as well as our solicitor for the borough, as well as the labor solicitor, they have not completed the review of all of those time records. You know, we started to look at the records, but we've not completed our review. And the last point would be is that the points that you've brought forward are duly noted, and that those points are being discussed with both our borough solicitor as well as our labor attorney.
Great. Thank you. The other thing I wanted to ask about was the WIN committee. Now, I've been here for about 4.5 years now, and I have never had any contact with the Wind Committee myself. I hear things about what they did or what they didn't do, but this is another situation where the Borough Council wrote a letter and discussed it in public, requesting all the quarterly reports relating to the Wind Committee. And was that ever resolved, or did council ever receive any kind of accounting or anything?
To date, council has not received any quarterly records from the Wind Committee. I can confirm that the district attorney's office was contacted, and that the district attorney's office has been in contact with the folks that are in charge of the Wind Committee. Beyond that,
well, that goes to my next question. Is there such a thing as a Wind Committee? Because if there's a Wind Committee, there must be people who are on the Wind Committee. Who's on the Wind Committee?
I believe it's run out of the school, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know
It
much
started
about it.
being run out of school. We started about
Okay.
15
But
years
is
Well,
ago.
it
then
currently an ongoing thing, or is
I
it
don't know.
wrapped?
I don't know.
Because the thing is, if it's being run out of the school, I spoke to a resident who was involved in the Wind Committee at an earlier time, and that resident told me that when they opened a bank account for the Wind Committee, they used the school's EIN number, which is the tax number from the school district. So either it was a school operation, or else somebody was doing something they shouldn't have done, because once you have that EIN number from the school, you're listed as being a nonprofit or something, and you can buy things tax-free and all that. This was part of my question about the Wind Committee in the past, because you can't just go to the bank and say, we're the Wind Committee, we're going to open an account. Somebody has to have a social security number. And for a corporation, that's the Wind Committee. That would be, if you're a corporation, which they're not, they never, as far as I know, they never filed as a non-profit corporation or anything, then they don't have a tax number, and they're not entitled to having money and not paying taxes on it and so forth, and not accounting for where it is. So what I'm saying is that somehow we ought to get down to the bottom of this. If this is a borough operation, which seems to be what the borough said recently, and what that judge in the right to know case determined that it was a borough thing, then we ought to get control of it, and we ought to know what's going on with it. If it's not a borough committee, then the borough should disassociate itself from it and say that this is an operation that's entirely separate from the borough. We're not liable for anything that they do. We're not going to take credit for anything that they do, and we're also not going to be sued for anything that they do. We're not responsible for keeping track of how much money comes in and how much money goes out. Even if people are well-meaning, you have to do things in the proper way so that somebody doesn't come back later on and say, well, how much money came in? How much money went out? You know, who got that money? How is it decided who to give the money to? And things like that. So I would my recommendation is that you either find out what the Wind Committee is, whether it exists, who's on it, and then determine whether or not they're going to, if it's a borough operation, they tell them that they need to comply with borough policies. Otherwise, tell them that they're on their own, and stop referring to yourself as a borough. You know. Anyway, that's what I'm saying, because I keep hearing about the Wind Committee, but I've never met anybody who's on the Wind Committee. All I've met are people who were on the Wind Committee, 5-10 years ago. And I don't know if the Wind Committee has any money. I don't know if they had money before. I don't know if they're going to local businesses and representing themselves as being a borough fund. as obviously the mayor was doing when he was using his, borough letterhead and signing it as the mayor of the borough and stuff like that. That's what the judge decided in that right to know case. If that's the case, then when you go to ask somebody for a contribution, you're also the people that are the health department, the zoning, the code people, and you're putting pressure on those people. So anyway, that's what I had to say. I'm just bringing these things to your attention, and maybe you could think about them and maybe look into them and address them at some point.
Glenn, my comment on that is that, with the WIN committee, there's a big difference between what you are told and what you're shown. What I've been told is that the WIN committee is not officially sanctioned by the school. It's a separate entity outside the school. I've also been told that the WIN committee is not an entity of the borough. You bring up the point about the EIN number, and I believe the simplest way to resolve the situation is that if somebody was to come forward and instead of telling you something, show you, show me a bank statement that says that the EIN number is somebody other than the Borough of Eddystone or Ridley School District. And then the entity is severed itself outside the borough. My personal feeling on the WIN committee is the WIN committee was put into place to help the children of Eddystone. So the cause, it stands for good things in our neighborhood. However, you bring up some very valid points, is that if it is operating as an entity of the borough, then you've got to be held accountable with the checks and balances. Where's the money coming in? Where's the money going out? If it's a function of the school is going to have the same feeling that they're going to want to have accountability. Money coming in, money going out. So, I was told that it's not part of the Borough of Eddystone, and I was told that it's not part of the school. We can move forward and ask somebody to show us.
Maybe they could be invited to come and give a presentation to Borough Council and explain who they are and what they do.
Other members of council, any comments about the WIN committee?
You know where I stand. I mean, we looked into it before. There was a borough letterhead. After the Attorney General's decision, I have heard nothing more about it.
Well, it would be very good if they would just come to council and explain it, because if there's a simple explanation to this, it would be wonderful to hear. If they're private citizens and they're doing something on their own, there's really no law that says that they need to incorporate. There's no law that says they need to be accountable to anybody, unless they're representing themselves as being a part of the school or part of the borough, or that if they're representing themselves as being a not-for-profit charity. If people think that donations made to them are tax deductible, apparently they're not. And if they're getting, I just wish, if the WIN committee is here, where is the WIN committee? And please somebody come forward and say, hi, I'm in the WIN committee. I'd like to meet somebody. Because I have no idea really what they do, other than the fact that there are outstanding legal issues with it.
What the WIN committee does is they'll organize the talent nights at the school. They'll organize the bingo evenings. They'll organize dances.
Buy coats. Purchase coats. Don't they purchase the coats?
I believe the coats came from the warmth program of
Is that
bingo.
who it is?
Yeah.
Well, then if they're organizing these things at the school, then they must be identifiable. And then the school, if you contacted the school and asked, is the WIN committee a school organization, and they say yes, no.
You're giving me lots of homework to do over the next week. The approach I'm going to take is that I'm going to drop a note to Jeff Durazio. Ask Jeff Durazio to take a few minutes of his time to sit down and say, listen, you know, here's what we're laying out. You know, you go back to what the Attorney General had to say about the WIN committee, with the fact that, you know, there was solicitation for donations that were circulated on borough letterhead. You know, does that make it a borough entity, just the fact that somebody wrote a letter on borough letterhead? You know, where does the WIN committee stand with, you know, because Jeff has got to be the one giving the approval for the use of the school after hours. So he's giving the approval for your Friday night talent shows. He's the one that's giving approvals for your bingo nights and things of that nature. So, you know, maybe Jeff Durazio could shed a little bit of light, or at least get us a little closer about who to contact with, you know, to show us
Right.
where that entity's coming from.
Great. Well, even those activities at the school would be good to have on the borough website too. If things are going on, if they're having a bingo night or something, maybe it's just for the kids and so forth. But one of the things we've noticed is that some of the schools in the Ridley School District have a lot of information on their website, and the Eddystone one, a lot of things say it hasn't been updated since 2009 or something like that. So, anyway, thank you very much.
Anything else, public forum wise? Action items for next meeting, we'll take action on the usual with the treasurer's reports, with the cash receipts and disbursements journal. We'll take action on the code enforcement report. We'll take action on the police report and the fire report. We'll also be taking action on approving or moving forward with the purchase of the computer hardware upgrades. We'll also be taking action on making the decision of whether we're going to purchase the services of ECN for their code red notification system. And we'll also, I've got a new one, we'll take action on officially approving the Bulldog Dash for the 5th of April. Upcoming public meetings, I'll bring to your attention the first, the 5th of March, which is a Wednesday. They've changed the time on the rail safety hearing. It was originally 10 o'clock. They've now moved it to 9:30. I'm also hearing rumors that they may move it to 9 o'clock. So if you do plan on attending the rail hearing, you may want to show up about a half an hour early. I'm going to be there about 8:30 just to make sure that I'm in the right place. I'm going to need some help on the rail hearing. Do we have in this borough a state flag? I see the Eddystone Borough flag, I see the American flag, but I do not see a state flag. And if we don't have a state flag, does anybody know where I would be able to get a state flag? And if I...
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
That would have a state flag, state of Pennsylvania? Mr. Callen, do you know if the VFW has a state flag?
I think they do. I think I've seen one hanging down there.
Okay.
I know the Legion does.
The Legion does have a state flag.
Yeah.
Would we be able to, as a borough, say, pretty please, let's borrow it for...
Do what?
We would need to borrow it for a few hours on Wednesday, if that's possible.
All right, I'll have to talk to Commander.
Okay.
You know what I mean, I just can't go take it out.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. When do you need it?
Wednesday morning we need it. So I would pick it up on tomorrow night if we're able to borrow it.
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning for a rail
Tomorrow,
hearing.
right? No, what?
Tomorrow, today's Monday, tomorrow's Tuesday, the following day. So if you can call the commander tomorrow and give me an answer, I can make arrangements to pick it up from the Legion. But you
Okay.
guys aren't open on Tuesday, right?
No.
So I'd have to make arrangements if someone opened the door for me and...
I'll open the door for you.
Okay,
But I'll have to get permission off him.
okay.
I'll let you know. I'll work on it tomorrow.
Bill, what does the hearing entail?
What the hearing entails is Representative Hackett is calling for rail hearings for the safety of crude by rail. And it's not just limited to the safety here from Philadelphia to the Eddystone Rail Station, or the Eddystone Rail Company. It is the moment that that unit train enters Pennsylvania, they want to make sure that it's got safe passage all the way through. I am most familiar with from Philadelphia to Eddystone Rail Company. So in that particular journey, that 2.5, 3 mile journey, that rail system, it's a, and correct my terminology if it's wrong, but it's a Class 1 rail. It is owned by Conrail, so they own the track. However, Conrail allows Norfolk Southern and CSX to operate on their system. So the relationship there is that Conrail is actually owned. Their parent company is this combination of CSX and Norfolk Southern. So you have a broker that decides that they're going to get this unit train out of the Balkan region in North Dakota, and it's going to make its way in through Ohio and either come in through New York and down into Pennsylvania, or across Pennsylvania through the rail system. And it goes, the chain of custody changes as it goes through because different folks own the rail line. So the purpose of the rail safety hearing is to put in measures to make sure that that freight carrier and those track owners are operating safely. So what you're looking at is to identify the crude oil. You know, number one, what do I have? Is it properly labeled? Because some crude is more volatile than other crude. So you want to know, okay, do I have something with a high flash point? I want to take additional precautions. You also want to look at it saying, okay, what is the condition of the track? So is there a need for these track owners to go out and inspect the track more often because you're carrying this crude oil? When I'm in a densely populated or residential area, do I need to implement speed restrictions? You know, the track is rated for 30 miles an hour, but I'd want to slow that train down to 20 just because I'm going to eliminate some of the potential of a derailment by slowing it down in the dense residential areas. You also look at the safety of the car itself. And I'm still very early in my research phase, so the cars are all what they call this DOT 111. That is the tank car itself. The design of these tank cars is old technology. A rail car might be in service for 30, 40 years. So your safety measures that are in place today are certainly more stringent than something that was built 20 years ago. So there's a move towards retrofitting these rail cars or buying new rail cars, new tankers that have more safety measures in place. A lot of it goes with the valve system underneath. There's a protection, a housing, so that if there is a derailment, that you don't accidentally hit the discharge valve and have fuel spilling all over the place.
So they want residents at this hearing?
They encourage anybody that's interested in attending.
Can I ask a question? Why did they choose to do it on a Wednesday morning at 9:30 instead of a weeknight at 7?
State legislator.
Okay.
This is a legislative session, so that's their normal business hours.
Okay.
It's a little unprecedented because they're not doing it in Harrisburg.
Okay.
They chose, and this is kind of what Hackett drove this by design.
Okay.
Is that I'm going to put it down at Eddystone because with Eddystone,
Right.
I'm going to bring in Eddystone, I'm going to bring in Tinicum, I'm going to bring in Ridley
I
Township.
understand.
And these are the communities that are directly impacted by the fact that you've got this Eddystone Rail Company coming online at the end of the first quarter.
And I understand that my thing was just having more people on board, because a lot of people have to work, you know, for them to get the information they need. That was just my, you know, just thinking.
And the way I understand this is going to work is it's going to work very much like a court hearing. Is that, you know, you will have your panel of, it's Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness panel. That's the legislative committee that's going to sit at the table very similar to the way we sit here at the council table. And then you will have companies that are going to provide testimony. So, you know, Eddystone Rail Company is going to send a representative to give testimony in front of this panel to explain, you know, the safety measures that they have in place, the emergency preparedness that they have in place. Conrail will do the same thing. CSX will do the same thing. Norfolk Southern will do the same thing. And, you know, what I would like to see out of this is that we've got a very good working relationship with Eddystone Rail Company. Eddystone Rail Company has, they've developed their emergency response plan. They've shared that response plan with the fire company. They've shared that response plan with Bob Gleam, who is our emergency management coordinator. They are working with the first responders, and that they're going that extra step if there's the terminology, if I'm correct, is a foam trailer?
Foam trailer, yeah.
So there's a foam trailer on site in the event that you've got some type of fire that you need to suppress with foam. The materials are already there.
We'll have 2 foam trailers.
They'll have 2?
We'll have 2 on site, except for in the winter months, because you can't store that outside. One trailer will be held down the firehouse down here, and the other one will be up in Tenneco.
So with that being said, you know, it's, if something happens within that fence line, you know, there's a plan in place. You know, the emergency responders can go right into action. From a personal standpoint, I don't have that same level of confidence if something happens outside the gate. You know, what is the response plan that we have with Conrail, CSX, Norfolk Southern? What's the mutual aid agreement that we have in the event that you've got to have Tenneco come to Eddystone and help something that's within our jurisdictional boundaries, or vice versa, if something, God forbid, happens in Tenneco and we have to send a mutual aid in. And that is personally what I want to get out of this meeting is that, you know, that same response plan that exists inside the gates, the fence line of Eddystone Rail Company, exists outside the gate with Conrail, CSX, Norfolk Southern, and our emergency responders.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
I have 2 additions to that. One is that the accident that happened in Quebec, one of the issues was how many personnel are required to be with the train, and there was an engineer who was not with the train at the time, and they blew up half a town.
Right.
And so one of the things I'm looking for is, are there requirements that the state will put into effect that are more stringent than that? And there have to be 2 multiple people, whatever, associated with the train, and that just because it's physically possible for one person to drive the train, and that's, you know, 1 engineer and a mile-long train, doesn't mean that when you have an emergency that's enough. And so I would like to know what the state is going to require of the rail companies in terms of adequate personnel. And the second is that we know that these things are regional, and that when there was a leak in Marcus Hook and a pump failed and there was a spill into the river, several days later there was a news report that way upriver they were getting tar balls washing up in Camden. And so, you know, that even if you have one area that's well prepared, if there's an area that's not well prepared, we're on a river, and, you know, if there's a spill, it could be a regional situation, and
Because
so
it's title.
it's title, and it's, so, you know, you're concerned about, well, if we've done our little bit, but the state hasn't overseen the whole picture, we could still be affected.
Would you be kind enough to email me your questions? Because as being the host town, we have the opportunity to give testimony in front of the panel, or the board, and I'd be more than happy to carry those questions forward, just so that everything is addressed.
If you're interested, I was doing some reading, and if you go out to North Dakota with Google Maps, I think the town is Berthold, North Dakota. I can get this stuff to you. You can look down, and they are on the Burlington Northern Santa Fe main line, and they have a big loop of track that is probably, I don't know, maybe 3 miles long. And what they do is they have a whole line of tank cars, and they pull one train into this building, and while it's in the building, it looks like they fill multiple tank cars from a pipeline. And then they move the train down and fill a bunch of other tank cars until they get that train full. In the meantime, there's another train sitting right there. And then I believe that what happens is that the Burlington Northern Santa Fe takes the train to the end of its track, which is in Chicago, and then Norfolk Southern probably picks up the train there and takes it the rest of the way down here. And as you said, when they get to the Philadelphia area, the last remnants of the Conrail Corporation are a set of tracks in Philadelphia that have historically been jointly owned by railroads, so that they can each get into different areas and get into this port or that port when they have mutual trackage rights to use those tracks. So that's what Conrail is at this point. And that's what comes down past the airport to us. They belong to Conrail. The other thing I saw in the news was that there's some company that does rapid response for like oil spills and fires and things like this, that is apparently going to open a regional office somewhere. I think maybe up near, up just north of the airport on the Schuylkill or something, and that they supposedly would be able to respond as a company, a specialized company, to deal with this kind of stuff. And I think it had to do with response to fires and so forth.
They talked about that the other day down there,
Right.
The
the other night.
They're gonna have two areas.
one
That's what's in the paper.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to kind of try to nail them down on is, are these rail cars that they use each time, are these rail cars always going to belong to the same company? Because usually the rail cars are leased from some company, and they're probably leased by the oil company, and then just moved by the railroads. And does that mean that the rail cars are always going to be of a certain standard every time, even if they lease cars from another one? And of course, you know that they're bringing in one train a day now, and they're hoping to later have 2 trains a day.
Let me answer that for you.
Okay.
The meeting down here at Joe Hughes Hall 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, every train that they, out in North Dakota, they load up, before they load it up, they inspect it to make sure it meets all safety standards, the whole 9 yards. Comes over, they unload, before it goes anywhere else, they inspect it again. If there's something wrong with it, they take it out of the rotation until all repairs are done.
Yeah. Well, the thing to remember is that there are, as Bill was saying, there are different types of rail cars, and they're manufactured to different standards. Some of the older ones that Bill talked about are really old, and they have a fairly thin, when you have an accident, they tend to split, and with this type of crude, when it splits, it goes up in flames. Whereas a lot of the standard crude that comes out of a standard oil well that hasn't been injected with chemicals.
These cars, they're going to be used, are fairly new cars.
Right.
Right.
It's also my understanding that they have like an inner wall.
Yeah.
It's a tank inside of the tank.
Yeah.
Well,
So
the
there
brand
is-
new cars are being manufactured. The newest standard is a car that's got a double wall.
Right.
Then you go back to the original car, and then in between that, there's another type of car that is the old car that's been refurbished in a certain way. And there are 3 separate classes of car. So the question is, which type of car are they going to be coming into town with?
Like I said, my understanding is they're going to use the tank inside of the tank.
That sounds good. I'd sure like to see that, like in writing or something, because it's so.
You go back to my earlier statement of what I've been told.
Yeah.
And what you've shown me. And, you know, I had the opportunity to meet the oil broker, the crude oil broker, at the meeting that was in Tinicum beginning of February. And his statement was that every one of these tank cars would be what the industry terms as the car of the future, which is the double-walled, reinforced car that you're referring to. And I had the acronym this afternoon of what it was, and I'm not quite sure what it
That was the oil company?
That was the oil company.
Okay.
But I making the statement is easy.
Right.
Showing it and putting it in writing that's the key.
But what's happening on Wednesday is what is the state going to require?
Correct.
Because they can start out with assurances, and then as business is booming, they pull in any car that they can use. And if the state hasn't required that it be the more modern tank or a retrofitted tank or whatever, you want to know that there is some control, and is the state overseeing that? Yeah.
When we were talking to them here in this room, one time I asked them whether they were planning on building a pipeline. I said, what's the point of, putting all this stuff on barges? Why don't you just build a pipeline down to Marcus Hook or something like that? And at that time, they told me they had no plans to build a pipeline. And I was on their website the other day, and Phase 2 includes a pipeline. So I don't know if they've approached Borough Council about building a pipeline through our town, but that would be interesting.
Whose website's that, Enbridge?
I'd have to check that.
Eddystone Rail?
I think it was Enbridge.
Enbridge?
But that also probably would go along with this idea that has been someone from the rail company described to me of expanding the operation so that the tracks come all the way down through the Fomex place and back, so they get a larger loop and they can do either more trains or a larger train. Now, if they put that loop in, it's going to be very close to the houses in the village again. The same thing not only for the safety hazard, but for the railroad operations in the middle of the night, because I think that's when they're going to be working. And just the last thing is that one of the principals from the railroad company, from Eddystone Rail, told me that Bakken crude was no more volatile than standard crude, which is, I don't know why he said that, because it's just not the case. And so I'm just saying that when they tell you, all our cars are going to be brand new double-wall cars, I'd like to see some kind of assurance on that rather than just saying anything we want to hear.
Right.
So.
I'm trying to look up very quickly what
Have it in
that
writing.
designation was for
It's
the
coming for a
rail,
town, have it in
the
writing.
car of the future. So that's on Wednesday. I encourage you to come out. Please email me your questions. I'm still putting together, the testimony that we would want to ask. I did reach out to Tinicum and to Ridley Township to kind of do a joint effort so it was not redundant in the questions that were being asked, since I'm sure all 3 communities will have the same concerns as the safety of the material comes down the rail and enters into the Eddystone Rail Company facility. Ed, if you could put on your calendar in there that Wednesday is the first of 4 police and emergency management meetings. 6 p.m. And then we'll follow that up with a meeting of the Highway and Sanitation, and then our next Borough Council meeting is next Monday night, the 10th. general updates, the recycling continues to expand. We're seeing more and more. And the reference there is that they do not want you to have the greasy, cheesy goo from the top of a pizza box. However, if you happen to get your pizza box and the top is greasy, you can always tear the top off and throw the bottom half that is clean in the recycling. Half is better than none. We will have an executive session next Monday evening at 6 p.m. to discuss personnel and litigation matters. Mr. Vicente, I've got prayer that evening, roundtable discussion. Councilwoman Gross, anything to add?
I'm good.
Councilman Patterson?
Mr. President, there's 3 events on 325. I'm one of those events.
Okay.
The zoning and code enforcement will have a meeting on March 25th at 6 p.m. And I just don't know what we're doing with the other 2.
It's using Delcor also, right?
Is that what it is? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 6, 7, and 8. Sorry.
Thank you.
6 p.m., 7 p.m., and 8 p.m. Danielle with Delcora, I did bump into Bobby Willard on Saturday morning. He is going to have somebody from Delcora come out and kind of explain the whole concept of usage-based sewer fees to us. I'm hoping to get the confirmation for the 25th at 7. If they are unavailable, what I'd like to do is to just set up a telephone conference call just so that we have that initial discussion and at least get it up and running. The other small bit of information is I did sign the contract drawings or the contract proposals for the sewer rehabilitation, which Catania Agency put out for the CDBG funds. And we'll have to ask Mr. Catania on Monday of next week when he plans on moving forward with that contract. But the floor is yours.
I have nothing. I'm good.
Mayor Reeves.
I'm good. I'm good.
Acting Chief Macheski.
I'm good, sir.
I'm ready to. I have nothing to add. May I have a motion to adjourn? Meeting adjourned.